Hi, my name is Claire Mikeson and I'm a school improvement specialist with Montana OPI. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the gap analysis, a crucial step in preparing to write your school's action plan, which is required for the Integrated Strategic Action Plan, or ISAP. This video is the first in a 4-part series on the gap analysis. It provides an overview and covers the first 3 steps. To learn about the next steps, check out our subsequent videos in this series. The gap analysis is the step between gathering data through various means and then forming an action plan for school improvement. A gap analysis process allows districts to determine how to best achieve their goals by comparing the district's current state with the future ideal state, by highlighting areas of growth and opportunities for improvement that you want to focus on in your action plan. We've broken the steps to creating a gap analysis down into 9 tasks. Click on the link in the video or ask your school's improvement specialist for a copy of the gap analysis template, which includes the tables shown in these videos that you and your school staff can fill out together. A gap analysis lets schools clearly delineate the steps needed to ensure that all students can be successful and achieve academically. It's an opportunity to look at all kinds of data: academic, behavior, attendance, whatever you think is important, in order to find out what to prioritize for your students and what needs should be met in order to meet your goals. The first step is gathering student data related to academics, such as assessment data from local or state assessments. Step 2 asks you to analyze student data by identifying possible barriers and steps for improvement. For step 3, consider additional data, such as attendance, teacher retention, or professional development offerings. Step 4 is going to focus on data from the CNA, or Comprehensive Needs Assessment, in order to allow different stakeholders to rank your school's needs. In step 5, you'll use that data that you've just looked at to identify the top 3 priorities for your school. Step 6 is going to ask you to identify any current initiatives or systems and how well they align with the top 3 priorities that you identified. And then in step 7, you're going to brainstorm action steps, such as who's in charge and what needs to be done in order to address those priorities. Finally, steps 8 and 9 ask you to explore evidence-based interventions, strategies, or enrichment activities, and then put it all together. The sheet you see here is a place to write down student academic data, and then in step 2, we'll take a moment to look closer at student subgroups. While at the state level, we categorize these subgroups as EL, SPED, socioeconomic, and ethnicity. You can think about what subgroups might be outside of those distinctions and relevant to your school population. For example, if your school is 100% free and reduced population, you'd want to think about what subgroups or groups could be within that. For step 1, list the data you'll be using in this chart provided. Examples of local assessments and the Montana State assessments are listed in the left-hand column. Be sure to include the name of the assessment you're using for both state and local data sources. Think also about what academic data you don't have and what might be keeping you from collecting that data. That could even be an area of growth for your gap analysis. To access state testing data, check out the MAST portal and the Cambium Montana Assessment portal on the OPI website. The Montana Assessment portal provides access to the Montana Science Assessment, Alternate MSA, and resources for accessing the WIDA Screener, WIDA's Access Assessment, the Multi-State Alternate Assessment, and the ACT. Formerly, this site has included access to the SBAC. However, after the 23-24 school year, MAST will replace SBAC as Montana's required state assessment. SBAC data from 2024, however, will still be available in GEMS. The MAST portal includes links to the KITE Educator portal, where schools will be able to access data reports, as well as resources for teachers and parents, and manuals and training materials to implement the MAST assessment. Now on to step 2. In this step, we're beginning to analyze student data. Keep in mind that if you have multiple school groups identified as comprehensive support and improvement, such as an elementary school and a high school, you will need to write plans for each school. Let's look at each component of this table and an example. At the left, this first column that you see is subgroups. Here are 2 listed examples at the top, including ELL, which is one of the 4 subgroups within ESSA. The others, economically disadvantaged, ethnicity, and special education, are listed below. A 5th example, students in transition or homeless, is also provided in this second column, or second row. The second column is gaps in data. You'll see for the example entry, ELL, in terms of gaps in data, there's a gap between the school average of vocabulary identified by all students and the vocabulary identified by ELLs. In this case, the difference is 32%, and that could be your gap. The third column, barriers to success, lists out any identified barriers that students within this subgroup have faced. One example of a barrier may be students guessing at word meanings due to vocabulary not being explicitly or consistently taught. The last column is next steps for improvement. This is where you list out specific strategies you and your team could use to address the gaps and barriers that you've identified in the previous column. Some examples include those listed here, such as providing explicit vocabulary instruction. So in this step, you and your team analyze student data by reviewing data reports and compiling other data you might have, such as assessment data, but also observational, anecdotal, and experiential data. It may help to continue the list in the table in step 1. Finally, complete this table by identifying specific student subgroups relevant to your student population, gaps the data shows, barriers students have faced, and ideas for improving student outcomes. Complete a row for each of the various student subgroups present within your school, using the data you've collected. If we want to take a deeper dive, we can look at the second example. We see the subgroup, and we see the data is their attendance rate at 53%, which is well below the state satisfactory attendance percentage of 95%. One barrier for success this past year for these students has been access to technology. And then one way that you and your team could help address this gap is to provide these students with one-to-one devices or loan out hotspots, potentially partnering with your local internet provider. Next, we'll look at some other subgroups that you may have within your student population and can include in your gap analysis. Keep in mind that you do not need to include all of these. If your student population is, for example, 100% American Indian, then you can begin to look within that group to identify subgroups. In this case, ethnicity wouldn't be a subgroup. Another subgroup might be students receiving mental health services. Take a close look at your school to help you meet the needs of your student population in step 2. Step 3. Now that we've thought about our student subgroups, let's consider what additional types of data, beyond state and local assessment data, you have. You can also think about what data you wish you had to make changes in the next year and include them in your action plan. Finally, you can think about what data you collect that you didn't use to identify what might be taken off your plate. Additional data to consider could include attendance, student engagement, behavior or discipline, graduation rate, technology use, or staff and teacher data, such as teacher retention, teacher recruitment, teacher attendance, professional learning, and definitely walkthrough data. Thanks for watching the first in our 4-part video series on the gap analysis. Keep watching for more information on steps 4 and 5 in the next video. For more information, or if you have questions, contact your school improvement specialist or check out the school improvement webpage on the OPI website. Thanks for watching.